It was a tense evening on the live political debate show when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett took center stage opposite Kash Patel, a former Pentagon official and vocal supporter of controversial government policies. The topic: national security and recent intelligence leaks. As the discussion heated up, Patel launched into a series of accusations, questioning Crockett's stance on transparency and loyalty to the country. As Kash Patel aggressively pressed his points, accusing Crockett of being naive and soft on national security, the atmosphere in the studio grew electric. Viewers watching at home could sense the rising tension. But instead of backing down, Jasmine Crockett paused, looked Patel squarely in the eyes, and delivered a response that would leave everyone stunned. With calm precision, she said, "Mr. Patel, your arguments rely on fear-mongering and half-truths. True patriotism demands accountability." Not be. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of Crockett's words hanging heavily in the air. Kash Patel, caught off guard, struggled to regain his composure. The viewers at home exploded with reactions on social media, many praising Crockett for her fearless confrontation and calling her the voice of reason in a sea of political posturing. As the debate resumed, it was clear that Jasmine Crockett had not only held her ground but had shifted the narrative, reminding everyone that courage and clarity often outshine aggression. Lend allegiance to secrecy that shields those in power from scrutiny. Following her sharp rebuke, Jasmine Crockett seized the moment to further clarify her position, emphasizing the importance of transparency and ethical leadership in a democratic society. "We cannot sacrifice our values for the sake of convenience or political gain," she asserted firmly. When officials hide behind classified information to avoid accountability, they undermine the very foundations of our republic. Kash Patel, visibly rattled, attempted to counter, but his words lacked the conviction that Crockett's had. The host of the show acknowledged the power shift, steering the conversation toward a more substantive dialogue about government oversight and the role of citizens in holding leaders accountable. In the aftermath, clips of Crockett's remarks went viral, igniting discussions across political lines. Commentators and everyday viewers alike were left speechless by her combination of sharp intellect and unwavering integrity. It became clear that Jasmine Crockett wasn't just participating in the debate, she was redefining it. As the episode closed, many viewers took to social media with hashtags celebrating Crockett's fearless stance, signaling a growing demand for leaders who prioritize truth over theatrics. In a political climate often dominated by spectacle, Jasmine Crockett's performance was a reminder that powerful ideas and bold honesty still resonate deeply with the public. In the days following the heated exchange, Jasmine Crockett's response continued to reverberate throughout political circles and social media platforms. Analysts dissected her words, noting how she managed to cut through the usual noise and appeal directly to a widespread public frustration with opaque government practices and partisan grandstanding. Many saw her as a rising figure embodying a new wave of leadership, one that values accountability, transparency, and a firm commitment to democratic principles. Meanwhile, Kash Patel faced mounting criticism from both supporters and detractors. Some questioned whether his aggressive tactics during the debate had backfired, undermining his credibility and raising doubts about the very policies he championed. Others argued that Crockett's sharp response exposed a broader issue: the dangerous tendency among some officials to conflate dissent with disloyalty, a tactic that threatens open dialogue and healthy governance. For Jasmine Crockett, the moment was not just a political victory but a call to action. In interviews after the debate, she stressed the importance of moving beyond partisan divides to tackle the real challenges facing the nation, from protecting civil liberties to ensuring that national security does not come at the expense of the public's right to know. Her words resonated especially with younger voters and activists who had long felt marginalized by traditional politics. Many expressed newfound hope that leaders like Crockett could inspire meaningful change and restore faith in government institutions. As the media buzz settled, one thing remained clear: Jasmine Crockett's fearless confrontation with Kash Patel was more than just a viral moment, it was a powerful statement about the kind of leadership the country desperately needs. In an era marked by division and distrust, her commitment to truth and integrity offered a glimpse of a more hopeful political future. The debate may have ended, but the conversation she ignited was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, the impact of Jasmine Crockett's on-air confrontation with Kash Patel rippled far beyond the confines of that single televised debate. The exchange became a catalyst for broader conversations about political accountability, transparency, and the responsibilities of public officials in safeguarding democracy. Town halls, community forums, and social media platforms buzzed with renewed energy as citizens demanded more from their leaders. Crockett herself capitalized on the momentum, launching a series of initiatives aimed at increasing government oversight and promoting ethical governance. She partnered with advocacy groups dedicated to fighting corruption and protecting whistleblowers, positioning herself as a champion for those who dared to speak truth to power. Her efforts garnered bipartisan support, signaling a rare moment of unity in a polarized political environment. At the same time, Kash Patel found himself increasingly isolated within political circles. His once steadfast allies began to distance themselves as questions about his credibility and approach intensified. Analysts noted that Patel's failure to effectively counter Crockett's arguments marked a turning point in his career, highlighting the risks of aggressive rhetoric without substantive evidence. The media continued to spotlight Crockett's rise, profiling her background as a former public defender and civil rights advocate, qualities that explained her passion for justice and unwavering commitment to democratic values. Public opinion polls showed a significant boost in her favorability ratings, especially among independents and younger voters eager for change. Beyond politics, Crockett's exchange with Patel sparked a cultural moment, inspiring artists, writers, and activists to explore themes of courage, integrity, and the power of speaking out. Documentaries and podcasts emerged, dissecting the debate and its implications for the future of American democracy. Despite the acclaim, Crockett remained grounded, consistently emphasizing that her fight was not about personal victory but about restoring trust in institutions and empowering citizens. "This is about all of us," she said in a recent interview. "When we hold our leaders accountable and insist on transparency, we protect the very essence of what makes our democracy strong." Her story became a blueprint for other politicians seeking to navigate the increasingly hostile landscape of modern politics without sacrificing principle. It underscored the importance of eloquence, preparation, and moral clarity in debates that often devolve into sound bites and spectacle. As the next election cycle approached, many wondered whether Jasmine Crockett's example would influence a new generation of leaders committed to truth and accountability. One thing was certain: the shockwaves from that unforgettable debate had set in motion a shift that could reshape political discourse for years to come. The nation watched closely, hopeful that this moment marked the beginning of a renewed era of integrity in politics, a time when sharp wit and unwavering conviction would once again be valued above fear and division. As the months progressed, Jasmine Crockett's rise from a sharp debater to a significant political force became increasingly evident. Her performance on that live broadcast was replayed countless times, studied by political strategists and aspiring leaders alike. It was seen not only as a moment of personal triumph but as a turning point in the broader fight for transparent and ethical governance. Capitalizing on this momentum, Crockett began advocating for a series of legislative reforms focused on transparency in government operations. She introduced bills aimed at strengthening whistleblower protections, tightening restrictions on classified information misuse, and creating independent oversight committees to monitor intelligence activities. Her proposals sparked heated debates in Congress, drawing both strong support and fierce opposition, but they undeniably shifted the conversation toward accountability and reform. The political establishment took notice. Some seasoned politicians recognized the changing tide and sought to align with Crockett's vision, while others resisted fiercely, warning that such reforms could jeopardize national security. This clash underscored the complex balance between protecting the country and preserving democratic principles, a tension that Crockett navigated with growing skill and poise. Meanwhile, Kash Patel's political influence continued to wane. His attempts to discredit Crockett after the debate were met with skepticism, and his public appearances drew less enthusiasm. Critics argued that Patel's confrontational style and perceived lack of substantive evidence weakened his credibility. His role as a political commentator diminished, as new voices, like Crockett's, rose to prominence. The public's response was telling. A new wave of voters, energized by Crockett's example, began participating more actively in elections, town halls, and civic discussions. Grassroots organizations found renewed energy, often citing her debate performance as a catalyst for their activism. Social media campaigns, podcasts, and independent media outlets flourished with content focused on government transparency and ethical leadership. Jasmine Crockett also became a sought-after speaker at universities, think tanks, and international forums, where she emphasized the importance of principled leadership in a fractured world. Her message resonated globally, inspiring reform-minded politicians and activists beyond the United States. Despite the growing attention and responsibilities, Crockett maintained a commitment to her constituents and the causes that had defined her career. She continued working closely with community organizations, focusing on issues such as criminal justice reform, voting rights, and economic equity. This grounded approach strengthened her reputation as a leader who not only debated fiercely on air but also delivered tangible results off it. Political commentators began to frame Crockett's influence as emblematic of a new political era, one defined by integrity, accountability, and a refusal to accept the status quo. She became a symbol of hope for those tired of political cynicism and a model for future generations of leaders. As the next election cycle approached, the stakes grew higher. Crockett's opponents sought to undermine her with targeted campaigns, but her consistent focus on transparency and ethical governance helped her maintain broad support. Analysts predicted that her continued rise could reshape the balance of power in Congress, potentially driving a wave of reforms that had long been stalled. In the wider context, Crockett's clash with Patel was no longer seen as an isolated incident but as a defining moment in the ongoing struggle for the soul of American democracy. It reminded the nation that leadership requires courage, not only to confront opponents boldly but also to hold oneself and others accountable to the highest standards. As the story of Jasmine Crockett's fearless response circulated, it served as a powerful lesson. In a world where political theater often overshadows substance, genuine conviction and clarity can still captivate hearts, change minds, and inspire lasting progress. In the year following that unforgettable on-air exchange, Jasmine Crockett's influence permeated not only the political landscape but also the cultural and societal fabric of the nation. Her fearless confrontation with Kash Patel had ignited a spark that quickly evolved into a flame of activism and engagement far beyond expectations. Communities across the country began holding Crockett forums, inspired by her call for transparency and accountability. These gatherings became incubators for local leadership, where citizens discussed policy, governance, and ways to demand more ethical behavior from their representatives. Civic engagement saw a marked increase, especially among younger generations who found in Crockett's example a blueprint for effecting change. At the national level, Crockett's legislative efforts gained traction. Her whistleblower protection bill, once dismissed by skeptics as too idealistic, garnered bipartisan support and passed through key committees. The establishment of an independent oversight body for intelligence agencies, a measure she championed, was debated intensely but eventually implemented with robust safeguards ensuring both security and transparency. The media's portrayal of Crockett shifted from rising star to cornerstone of principled leadership. Profiles in major publications highlighted her journey, from a public defender fighting for marginalized communities to a congresswoman reshaping national politics. Interviews revealed her relentless work ethic and the challenges she faced navigating an often hostile environment. International observers took note as well. Crockett was invited to global summits on democracy and governance, where her insights on balancing security and transparency resonated deeply. She became a voice for democratic renewal worldwide, advocating for governments to embrace openness without compromising safety. However, the road was not without obstacles. Powerful interests resistant to change mounted coordinated efforts to discredit her, launching smear campaigns and spreading misinformation. Crockett faced personal attacks and political pressure, but her resilience and support from grassroots networks helped her weather these storms. Her story also inspired a wave of young politicians and activists who sought to emulate her blend of courage, intellect, and compassion. Leadership training programs began incorporating case studies of her debate with Patel as an example of effective communication and moral clarity under pressure. Back home, Crockett's constituents felt the tangible effects of her advocacy. Funding for local transparency initiatives increased, and community watchdog groups found new resources and legitimacy. Voter turnout in her district rose significantly, signaling a reinvigorated faith in the democratic process. As the nation grappled with broader challenges, economic inequality, racial justice, climate change, Crockett's approach offered a hopeful template. She emphasized that real progress depended on honest dialogue, courageous leadership, and an informed citizenry willing to hold their leaders accountable. In reflecting on her journey, Crockett often credited that defining moment on air, not just for the immediate impact but for what it symbolized. It was about standing up for truth when it mattered most, she said. In politics, that can be rare. But it's essential if we want to build a future we can all trust. The debate with Kash Patel became a landmark event, studied in universities, cited in policy discussions, and remembered as the spark that helped reignite American democracy. It showed that in an age of division and distrust, a single moment of clarity and conviction could inspire a movement, one that continues to shape the nation's future. As Jasmine Crockett's influence expanded, the political landscape around her began to shift in unexpected ways. Her principled stance and rising popularity emboldened a new cohort of lawmakers who shared her vision for transparency and ethical governance. This emerging bloc, often referred to by political analysts as the Accountability Caucus, pushed aggressively for reforms, creating ripples through both major parties. However, with increased prominence came intensified scrutiny and opposition. Powerful figures entrenched in the old ways viewed Crockett and her allies as threats to their established influence. Behind closed doors, lobbyists and special interests orchestrated campaigns to undermine her legislative agenda, employing everything from targeted media attacks to legislative roadblocks. In one particularly high-profile confrontation, Crockett found herself battling not only Kash Patel's allies but also a coalition of veteran politicians resistant to change. During a contentious congressional hearing, she faced intense questioning designed to discredit her efforts to reform intelligence oversight. Yet, her unwavering composure and detailed knowledge of the issues won the day, turning skeptics into reluctant supporters. Simultaneously, Crockett's growing stature brought personal challenges. The relentless pressure of public life, the weight of expectations, and the constant barrage of criticism tested her resolve. At times, she struggled with balancing her public duties and private life, seeking solace in her close-knit community and the family that grounded her. Despite these trials, Crockett remained steadfast in her mission. She expanded her coalition beyond politics, working closely with journalists, activists, and civic organizations to create a multifaceted approach to reform. This network helped expose instances of government misconduct and pushed for greater media accountability, reinforcing the democratic checks and balances Crockett championed. Her impact was also felt on the judicial front. Crockett supported efforts to strengthen protections for whistleblowers within the legal system, helping pass landmark legislation that shielded those who exposed corruption and abuse of power. These changes empowered individuals to speak out without fear, further enhancing governmental transparency. Crockett's work reverberated internationally, inspiring democratic activists in countries struggling with authoritarianism. She participated in virtual forums and international task forces, lending her voice to global efforts aimed at strengthening democratic institutions and combating disinformation. As the next national election approached, Crockett's leadership became a rallying point for voters disillusioned with traditional politics. Her campaign emphasized integrity, community empowerment, and the defense of democratic values. Polls consistently showed her as a frontrunner, symbolizing hope for those craving honest and courageous leadership. Meanwhile, her rivalry with Kash Patel remained a focal point in political discourse. While Patel attempted to reinvent himself as a political commentator and policy advisor, his influence waned. Analysts often contrasted his combative style with Crockett's measured, fact-based approach, noting how public preference clearly favored the latter. Behind the scenes, Crockett's team worked tirelessly to build a diverse coalition, blending grassroots energy with institutional experience. This strategy proved effective in mobilizing voters across demographic and ideological lines, challenging the entrenched polarization in national politics. Throughout this period, Crockett continued to emphasize the importance of dialogue and empathy in politics. She often remarked that while confrontation was sometimes necessary, the ultimate goal was unity through understanding, a vision that resonated deeply with many Americans yearning for stability and progress. The legacy of her initial debate with Patel had transformed into a sustained movement for democratic renewal, one that reached beyond speeches and headlines to reshape the very fabric of political engagement in the country. As her story unfolded, Jasmine Crockett became not only a symbol of hope but also a catalyst for real, systemic change, demonstrating that boldness paired with integrity can indeed alter the course of history. As Jasmine Crockett approached the pinnacle of her political career, the journey that began with a single, unforgettable debate had transformed not only her own path but the very spirit of American democracy. Her fearless on-air confrontation with Kash Patel had ignited a movement, one that continued to grow, evolve, and inspire. In the final stretch of her latest campaign, Crockett's message resonated louder than ever, a call for truth, transparency, and unity in a nation fractured by division and mistrust. Her ability to communicate with clarity and conviction made her a beacon for voters seeking authentic leadership amid the noise of political spectacle. On election night, as results poured in from across the country, it became clear that Crockett's vision had struck a chord with millions. She secured a decisive victory, not only reaffirming her seat but solidifying her role as a leading voice for reform and ethical governance. Celebrations erupted among her supporters, many of whom credited her steadfast dedication as a turning point in revitalizing public faith in government. In her victory speech, Crockett reflected on the journey, from that tense moment on live television where she confronted Patel, to the broader movement that had followed. "This isn't just my victory," she declared. "It's a victory for every citizen who demands honesty from those they elect. It's a victory for democracy itself." As she looked toward the future, Crockett committed to continuing her fight for transparency, accountability, and justice. She announced plans to expand her legislative efforts and deepen community engagement, emphasizing that true leadership means listening as much as speaking. Political observers hailed her as a transformative figure, someone who demonstrated that courage and integrity could break through cynicism and reshape the political landscape. Her story was featured in documentaries, books, and academic courses as an example of how principled leadership can prevail even in the most challenging times. Meanwhile, Kash Patel's political relevance continued to fade, a reminder of how substance ultimately outweighs spectacle. His clash with Crockett became a case study in political resilience and the power of standing firm on one's values. Beyond the halls of Congress, Jasmine Crockett's impact endured in the countless communities she inspired. Voter turnout remained high, civic participation flourished, and a new generation of leaders embraced her example, proving that one moment of fearless truth-telling could spark a lasting legacy. In the end, Jasmine Crockett's story was more than just a political victory, it was a testament to the enduring strength of democracy when its champions refused to back down. Through sharp intellect, unwavering conviction, and a commitment to justice, she had shown that even in the darkest moments, hope could shine brightly. The nation had witnessed a defining chapter in its history, and with leaders like Crockett at the helm, the future looked brighter than ever.